up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Convert to Geek. I'm Tony.
And I'm Sean.
And we're so excited today to bring you a review of the Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's such a hot game right now. It's all over social media. Everybody's playing it. I know it's been on your radar, and I know it's been on Sean's wish list.
Yeah.
So we finally got our hands on a copy of it, and we're so excited to do a review for you guys, so you guys can see a gamer's perspective and a non-gamer's perspective. So let's get right into it, shall we?
Awesome, I can't wait. All right, so Lost Ruins of Arnak is produced by Shex Games Edition, and it was designed by Min and Elwin. And it does play 1 to 4 players, so it has a solo mode. And it states that it's about 30 minutes per player, and we found that to be about right.
So in the game, players lead rival expeditions to a newly discovered island. In it, you could explore jungles, find artifacts, discover lost ruins, and encounter mighty guardians.
Ooh, scary.
So the mechanics are pretty simple. It's a worker placement and a deck building game.
All right, so just a quick couple notes about the setup. So when you're first setting it up, you'll just want to take note that the main player board is double-sided and each player board is double-sided. So the first time you play the game, it recommends that you play it on the side that has the little bird temple, because that's the standard side. On the other side of the board, it'll look like a little snake temple, and that's a little more advanced side. So after you played it, it just kind of mixes it up for you. All right, and for the player board, you'll want to use the side that has these little victory point indicated on there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It also shows some resources. The other side of the board doesn't have that, and that's for the solo variant, and you'll use some tiles that are provided in the game. Now, the setup of the game I found to be pretty easy. There's pretty much a spot for everything on the board, so you just kind of put things in the proper locations. But when you're setting up the technology track, you'll just want to kind of take note that some of these areas are for higher player counts, and so depending on your player count, you'll put the little bonus tiles out based on that. And then when you're placing the little idle tiles that go out by these type 1 locations and type 2 locations, you'll want to put 1 in each type 1 location, and then you're going to put 2 in each type 2 location, 1 face up and 1 face down.
And the goal of the game is simple. Whoever has the most points at the end of 5 rounds wins.
And that might seem like 5 rounds. That don't seem like a lot. And in the beginning, you'll start off a little slow, but as the game progresses, you'll be able to do more and more as you build your deck. All right, so at the start of the game, each player will get the same hand. So each player will get 2 fear cards, 2 funding cards, and 2 exploration cards. And the funding cards and exploration cards match your player color. So everybody kind of starts with the same hand. And then as the game progresses, then each person's hand will become unique in their own as they buy cards. And the starting cards all give you some travel icons. Fear give you a boot. And they also give you a little lightning thing so that you can get a compass or a coin. And then in the game, there are 5 resources that you're going to be using to do various actions in the game. And that is coins that represent funding your expedition, compasses that represent traveling around the map and researching things. You got tablets that are researching the legend and the lore of Arnak. There's arrowheads that represent the past weapon technology of those that lived on Arnak. And then the little gems or rubies or the little red resources represent just the treasures that you're finding on the island, and you'll use those to do the various things throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So on a player's turn, there's several main actions that you can take. So one of the first main actions that you can take is to go dig at a site. And when you're going to dig at a site, you're going to spend the appropriate travel value. And the travel values in the game are boots, cars, ships, and planes. And they kind of have a hierarchy of how you can use those. Planes can go anywhere. Ships can go where boots go. Boots are like the lowest form of travel. So you pay that with your card or whatever item you have that will let you do that. And then you move your worker to the site that's already revealed, and you just get the resources depicted on that site. The next main action is discovering a new site. And when you're discovering a new site, you must pay an additional resource in addition to the travel cost, which is represented by compasses, which kind of represents your traversing the wilderness. So you're going to pay that with these little compasses. Then you're going to pay the appropriate travel costs. Then you'll move your worker to that site. Now each site will have that idle token we talked about in setup. You're going to take that and put it on your player board, and you get the resource immediately. You're going to flip it over to the point site. And then you're going to take a tile from the appropriate stack, whether it be a level 1 or level 2 location. You're going to flip it face up, and then you're just going to lay it on the area that you went to discover. And you will get the immediate resources that are shown on the card. After you get those resources, you'll then take a guardian from the stack of guardians. You'll flip that over and you'll place it on top of the location. The guardian does not affect you immediately. However, at the end of the round, you'll receive a fear card if that guardian is still on the site. All right, the next main action that you can take is to overcome a guardian. And to overcome a guardian, you're just going to pay the resource cost that's indicated or depicted on the bottom of the guardian tile. You're going to then take that tile and you're going to place it over by your player board face up. And each guardian will offer you a reward that can be used once per game, once during the game. And there are various things like a travel cost or a resource. Once you use that, you're just going to flip it over, and that reminds you that you've already used that. And all defeated guardians, whether you use that bonus reward or not, are worth 5 points at the end of the game.
The next action is to buy a card. To buy an item card, you got to pay the amount of coins that's indicated on the bottom left side of the item card. Then take the card, place it on the bottom of your draw pile. The next one is to buy an artifact card. To buy an artifact card, you got to pay the amount of compasses that are indicated on the bottom left side of the artifact card. You then place the artifact card in your discard pile and immediately resolve its effect for free. So after you do all that, then you're going to refill the card row after purchasing. So the next main action is to play a card. You play a card from your hand face up in your play area and resolve its effect. Some effects are free, which are indicated by a lightning bolt on the card. Some effects don't cost anything but require you to use this as your main action. And some effects have a cost associated, which must be paid before resolving. All artifact cards cost a tablet to play. Cards with a red X require you to exile a card, in which you place a card in the discard section of the main board. This is a good way to get rid of those pesky fear cards.
Alright, so the next main action you can take is to research. And there is a research track on the board, and you're going to have 2 tokens that you can move up on this track. You have a notebook and you have a magnifying glass. Now take note, because your notebook can never pass your magnifying glass.
Right.
So in essence, you got to move your magnifying glass up first and then bring the book up. They indicate that as the magnifying glass is researching, the book or journal is writing it down after you've researched it. So you can move that magnifying glass, though, however far up the track you want. You can never even move your book, and that's okay. You just can't move the book past that. All right, so based on that simple rule, you'll just choose which token that you want to move, and you'll pay the appropriate resources indicated on the board to move it up a space. Off to the right of the research track, you'll see the rewards based on which piece you move, the magnifying glass or the journal. Then you'll just take that reward and you'll put it in your little player board. Also, some spaces have bonus tokens. When you move on to a space that has one of those, you just remove it off the board, take that research or that resource that you get, and it's really the first person to get there gets it. All right, as players reach the top of the research track with their magnifying glass, they'll get bonus points for the end of the game. And that's just indicated by who gets there first in player order. So the first player that gets there gets the most, and then each other one gets a little less after. And then if you want to research again with your magnifying glass, you'll just get these little tiles that are at the top, and you'll get whichever one based on how many resources you commit to it. And then of course you can still move your journal up if it's still further down the track. Another thing that you can get as you're working up the research track is assistance. And as you progress along that research track, certain ones will unlock them or upgrade them. And you'll just select from the 3 piles, the face up one. You'll put that on your board, and then it provides you with some resources or an ability, like maybe get rid of a card. You'll just turn them to indicate that you used them. One thing to note is that when you upgrade, because you could upgrade them, when you upgrade your assistant, if you've already used them, you get to refresh them. Then you flip them to the gold side, which gives you a little bit more powerful action. and then you get to use it again in that same turn. And that can be pretty useful if you use it and then, upgrade it, and then you get to use it again.
Yeah, I found these to be really helpful because let's say you need a couple coins to buy an artifact card or something. You could use your assistant, and if it's upgraded, you can get 2. Like, there's so many different assistant cards that it gives you different abilities. So I thought they were really useful. I like the assistant cards.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely worth getting them, and I liked using them as well. So, but one thing to note is just to make sure before the end of the round, before you pass, make sure you use them, because a couple times I feel like maybe I forgot that, and I'm like, oh man, I could have used them before I refreshed them. After you can no longer perform any main actions during your turn, a player can pass. Now, if I pass and Tony still has several actions, she'll keep playing that out till she can no longer play any actions, and then she passes. Once all players have passed, then you'll just set up for the next round. So you'll pull all your workers back from the board. If you were at a location with the Guardian, you will get a fear card. You'll add that to your face down deck of cards that you played. You'll just shuffle those cards real quick, and they'll go underneath your draw pile. You'll refresh any assistants. And then on the player board, on the main board, you're just going to burn the 2 cards that are on either side of the Moonstaff. You'll move the Moonstaff 1 space to the right, and that just kind of tracks the rounds of the game. And then you'll replenish the 2 artifacts. And so artifacts will always go on the left side of the Moonstaff. So as the game progresses, you'll have more artifacts and less items.
So after 5 rounds, you do all the final scoring to see who wins. The game comes with this cool pad that you can keep track of all your points from all the different areas on the board.
Yeah, and I find that the score pad does help. And what's nice about the game is that pretty much everything you do in the game is going to score you points. One note that I will make, though, is that you don't get any points for excess resources, so it doesn't do you any good to hoard up a bunch of stuff on your board, and because it's not going to do you anything. You want to spend all that and get every little inch of scoring you can get out before you pass on that final score, because anything left over ain't going to do nothing for you.
True.
All right, so first I would just like to get Tony's thoughts on what she thought of the game prior to playing it and me really kind of explaining the rules.
All right, well, I feel like this is probably my biggest game that I've played.
I would
sure.
Say. Probably the biggest.
Getting it all out on the board and seeing it all set up, it looked a little complicated. I was a little intimidated. But honestly, it was really easy to follow. I feel like I picked it up really quickly.
Yeah, and really she did. And there is a lot going on the board. There really is a lot on the board, and it is a big board. And it's got a little extension board for the resources and stuff. So at first glance, if you've never really played Euro style games or these type of worker placement games, it can look probably a little bit intimidating, because it does seem like, man, that's a lot of information. But man, I found that the game really was pretty simple to follow.
It was. I agree. It was really easy to follow. My biggest challenge, I think, at first, but it didn't last very long, was just trying to manage my resources. This is, one of the first games that I've really played a resource management style game. So trying to manage my resources, because in order to move, you have to have the resources. So that was challenging at first, but it was something I really enjoyed doing. I liked it. And after probably the first round, I think I picked it up really quickly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it is a resource management game, too, somewhat, because you got to think about, like, all right, if I want to go do this site, but then I could go over there and kill that Guardian, or I could buy that card. And I felt like it offered a lot of really good decisions. Even in the first round, when I had limited things, I still felt like, with the right decisions, I still could do quite a bit.
Yeah, because I feel like your path that you took, you kind of went up the technology track, and I killed Guardians, and I think I won that one, huh?
I think you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, so I think we played this game a total of 3 times now, and Tony has won twice, and I've won once. And I believe each time we've played it, I feel like, as I recall, each time we kind of did a little different strategy.
Yeah, we did.
The last time Tony killed a lot of Guardians, It got a lot of the little idle tokens that added up, where I kind of focused on the technology track.
Right.
The time before that, we kind of both got to the top of the track and did some exploring, and it just kind of worked itself out. And another thing that I'll note is that each time we played, it's not like I blew her out or she blew me out. Like, the game is pretty tight all along, and I feel like any little different choice could really change the outcome of the score. So I like that it's not like, oh, well, you know, she just ran away with it. There ain't no way I can catch up now.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's in it throughout the game, and it really is kind of a surprise who's going to win, because there's so many ways to score. It ain't like you can really keep a running tally in your mind, and you're like, oh yeah, that'll give me 10, and that puts me at 50, and like there's just no way to figure that out.
Right.
So you're going to be at the end of the game, and you know, and then when we add it all up, it's like, oh wow, man, you know, I lost my 5 points, but I felt like I was kind of in it, you know, and
definitely.
So I liked that. Like, there was no clear runaway leader with it.
True. So Sean, you have been wanting this game forever. And now that you have it, now that you've played it, do you feel like it lives up to the hype?
So let me tell you, first of all, I really like worker placement, and I've really grown very fond of deck building. Now, the deck building in this is a little slower than some deck builders maybe, but I really love the mechanics of this game, and I think they did a good job of implementing the theme of the game, because I love Indiana Jones. Like, I grew up watching all the Indiana Jones, and I love that whole treasure adventure type of genre, you know. And so I really felt like I was out on this expedition, and I was really going out and discovering sites and getting all this little cool stuff. And man, the components of the game are awesome. Like, they're chunky in your hand. I love the plastic tokens. They feel good. They look awesome. And it just really kind of feels, and I love how they just kind of like, the rule book was really easy to read, but as they described things, it added to the theme. Like, compasses represent you traversing through the wilderness. And so they're represented with compasses because it shows the time you put to go research that artifact or go to research that location. And, you know, tablets are, you're researching the knowledge of the art of the island of Arnak. And so I like how they kind of added that explanation on what each of the resources are. Like, coins show that you're funding your expedition, and I think it helps add to the theme of the game and made it a lot more enjoyable for me. What did you think of it?
One of the things that I love the most about this game is the artwork. The board is just beautiful, and when you get all the components on the board, all the cards on the board, it's so pretty to look at. It's just beautiful artwork.
Yeah, the production is awesome, and the artwork is really, really great. The cards look great. The Guardians look great. The little like everything just really looks great. I think the production of the game was really well. The components are really nice.
And we only played this at a two-player as a two-player game. I'd be really interested to see how it plays with more players. Like, I think it'd be a lot of fun playing it with more people.
I think it would. I think it would have a good rhythm and pace to it. But I can say, though, that it did play very well at a two-player count, and I think that's really important. That's something I look for in a game, is can it survive at a two-player count? Because the reality is sometimes you just can't get everybody over.
Right.
And so it's nice to have a game that I can play with 4 players, but I also can just play with 2 players, you know, if I can't get everybody together. And so this game, I thought, I didn't think suffered from playing with less players either.
So was there anything that you didn't like about the game?
I can't say that there's anything that I really didn't like. What I can say is that sometimes I did forget, like, when you're replenishing the card row, you're supposed to slide, like if you buy a card in the middle, you're supposed to slide them all down and then put the card on the end. And a couple times, I think we just kind of turned the card over and put it in its empty spot. And so that part was a little bit finicky and forgetting it. And it is important because it helps cycle the cards out of the game so that you can get some fresh stuff in the game. So if you forget that, you might cycle out the new card and you're still stuck with the stuff that nobody wants to buy anyways.
Yeah.
But that's really the most finicky thing. And then just remembering that the travel costs, the hierarchy of that, like planes can go anywhere. So I can use a card with a plane on it to go anywhere. And I can use cars as boots. And so sometimes that helps, especially in like what you was talking about, managing your resources. If you forget that, you might actually play a card that would have maybe suited you better because it had a plane, and now I could have went over here to this location. And so you probably just want to make sure that you remind people, especially if it's the first time playing the game, that there is that hierarchy and there's other ways to travel. The other thing that I kept forgetting too is that you can pay 2 coins to charter a plane. So if you just give up 2 coins back to the supply, you've bought a plane and you can use that to travel out. So if you ran out of cards, you still can travel, but you just got to pay the 2 coins if you have them. And so that's a good thing to remember. Is there anything you didn't like about the game?
Not necessarily anything that I didn't like, but I did find that after I was done with my turn and I passed, and you were still trying to play out all your different action steps or whatever, I got a little bored. Just because you take forever.
So, and that is one thing, like some games, where one player can pass, but another player still may have like a ton of actions to do. And yeah, and the game that I even lost, I lost the game. But at the end, she passed, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do this. I can buy this artifact. I'm going to retap my assistants. I'm going to go over here and move up on the track. And man, I did like 6 or 7 other things. So I was feeling pretty good. Like, man, but I looked over and I could tell you were kind of like on your phone, like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah. Wow, yeah, you went up on that. You were ready for me to just wrap it up, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If she had the little button,
yeah, I would have
wrap it up. She would have been hitting that button. And so definitely there is some of that. So you just got to be prepared to know that if somebody managed their resources or amassed some resources and have them in that last round, you might be in for a spell while they work out all their little thing. And it is a mathy game. Yeah. So if you're trying to eke out every little point you can, then, it can get a little bit of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Analysis paralysis. So you can be a little bit like, well, if I get that and I go there and so if you play with people that suffer from analysis paralysis, then this game will probably exhibit a little bit of that, but I still think it's fun even though.
So how do you think it was teaching me the rules and how to play the game?
So this is one of the first, really kind of Euro style games that I've played with Tony, worker placement style games. And I felt like it was very easy to teach. I feel like the iconography is really good, so it's pretty easy to know, like, all right, this does this, and this gets me this. And, like, I never even had to go back to the rule book to explain a card. All the cards I felt were very self-explanatory. And so I felt like you picked up on it really well. I mean, you won twice, so you wasn't suffering too much. The first game, because, like most of us when we teach a game, if I read the rule book and I know all the rules, then I'm going to try to help those that don't know the game. And so I had to help along for the first round or 2 maybe, but then man, like after the first 2 rounds, I felt like you were off to the races and you were making your own decisions and I really didn't have to do anything. I maybe had to remind you a thing or 2, but in the second and third game, you just played your own game, you did your own thing. And
right.
How did you feel about the teach?
Like I said, I feel like I picked up on it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I do too. All right, Tony. So, what's your final verdict on Lost Ruins of Arnak?
I loved this game. It definitely lived up to the hype. It was so fun. I loved this game. It was amazing.
Thumbs up.
I liked it a lot.
Man, it is a great game. I have been dying to get my hands on this, and it's been in short supply, and we finally came across it. I couldn't wait to get it to the table. And let me tell you, like, the fact that Tony loved it is such a win because I really like it. I've been dying to play it. It's one of my favorite type of mechanics, and so I was really happy that she enjoyed it so much, and she did have a ton of fun.
I did.
Playing this game.
So if you guys have played this game, leave us a comment and tell us what you guys thought about Lost Ruins of Arnak because we absolutely loved it. And as always, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, click subscribe, and hit that bell so you guys can be notified of upcoming videos. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to watch us.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.